often, as I said to you beforehand, for the people who are watching, we like the working group because we get to laugh at Damien Grant. He's the gift that keeps on giving. But last night there was kind of like 2 or 3 little conversations that I thought were interesting, and none of them particularly long, a couple of minutes each, interesting about where we are today and what's going on. This first one's actually about iRex, and the ferries at the moment, kind of aren't really news, but some funding, some finances have been released as to what it's costing us, New Zealanders, our taxpayer dollars, to cancel iRex. And remember one thing, whānau, I thought that Karen McInulty was very, very good the other day on Q&A when he pulled up the journalist, I forget her name, Katie Bradford, got it. I have to go through her mum, surname of her mum, then go back. I have to go backwards. And Katie Bradford said, well, you guys wasted $1 billion. And he goes, well, hang on. It wasn't wasted until National cancelled it. You know, when you build, he didn't say this, but when you're building a house and you get the plans drawn up, you've spent 1/10 and generally of the whole price of the house. And yeah, if you stopped it right there, it would feel like a waste. But if you build the house, it's not a waste. So it's kind of a bit the vibing with this one, the iRexes as well. They're going to try and sell it as that Labor wasted $1 billion because it's got to $1 billion the costs. And actually, it's who cancelled it needs to own those costs. Let's have a listen to the conversation.
Damien, follow-up question. The Maritime Union of New Zealand has today claimed that the cancellation cost for the iRex ship build is likely to come in at more than $300 million and could run up to a maximum cost approaching $500 million at current rates. This would be on top of $500 million that's already been sunk in on the cancelled iRex project. I'm as pissed off as any Labour Party supporter that the bloody bike lane over the Harbour Bridge that never got built cost us $150 million. But sweet zombie Jesus, Labour shouldn't be lectured on economic mismanagement by a government that has spent $1 billion on a Toyota Corolla, should they?
I don't know whether it cost $150 million for the bike lane, but anyway, come back to that decision.
I heard it was only 50, to be fair.
That decision, to cancel was bloody stupid.
Right.
Absolutely stupid, because it was a good deal on the ships.
Such a good deal.
They were slightly larger because they were then more rail capable.
Yes.
Which is really what we need if we're trying to decarbonise our economy.
Yes.
And there are some issues there around, but I'm presuming that they could still use the same channels. There's discussion about, how big. I guess these big boats are just as manoeuvrable and could have used the same channels. Come back to the point around the infrastructure. I know one contractor working in Picton, they started to dig up, a place to put. It was just a let-down area or place down area. It was a whole lot of asbestos. So that contract blew out. Most contracts that we've seen, Transmission Gully being a classic, have blown out costs. It was a big project. No one liked the blowout and the cost. But the issue for us long term is, can we afford not to have the best ferries and the best infrastructure to link our 2 major islands? And I think it's a bit of a mess, and I think the Minister of Finance is finding this out now.
We should build a tunnel.
I've always believed in the tunnel. For
the amount of money that we spent on COVID, we could have built a tunnel.
And actually, I think I've seen some reports that show that if we did build a tunnel, it would have huge economic impact for the South Island. So I'm all for this.
It's about twice the distance of the
There's
tunnel.
thousands and thousands of employers and employees who got money to keep them going through COVID, who are now completely ignoring that.
Yes,
and
disgusting.
I think they need to be reminded that the money we spent kept people moving through a really, really unique and challenging time.
Once in a century pandemic.
I spent that money on a holiday.
He did. He loved it. He loved that money.
I got so much money.
If you're that concerned,
I'm concerned. I'm concerned for his soul.
About wise taxpayer spending, you should give it
quick
back.
round.
So there you go. We all do always like to find a little space there, Clint, to make Damien Grant look like an absolute see you next Thursday. We've already discussed numerous times how, when he tries to tell a joke, he just completely reveals his true nature. But moreover than that, the iRex. So this is the deal, yeah? We've lost $1 billion bucks, and we have nothing for it because $3 billion was too much. So what that means is if they spend anywhere near $1 to $1.5 billion, you'll be within cooey of having the Ferrari. So for them to get out of this with any kind of credibility, they have to spend $500 million or less. And what the hell is that going to look like? Because if you're telling me for 2/3 of the price of a Ferrari, like if they spend $1 billion, that gets us to $2 billion. For 2/3 of the price for what I could have got a Ferrari for, but I get something 50 times worse, it's a terrible investment. Like they got to spend very little money to save any face. They're not going to be able to. It's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. And Barb Edmonds asked Nicola Willis some questions about this in Parliament yesterday. And Willis was getting up and saying, well, I've just been down to Centre Port here in Wellington, and they showed me the wharf, and I said, could this take a ferry? And they're like, yeah, no problems. And Barb goes, well, I've heard you're looking at these E-flexes. This is these ones that are made in Stenoline. They made in China, and they're nearly as big as the ones that you've cancelled. So you're going to need new wharfs, aren't you? And she basically admitted it. And she said, yeah, but we won't be paying for it. So God knows who's going to be paying for it. But yeah, by the time you buy the ferries, and they'll be close to $1 billion now, because we were going to pay $500 million, but the price of ships has gone through the roof and the exchange rate has got worse. And then you pay landside stuff, different stuff than the stuff that's just been cancelled. You're going to be lucky to get under $3 billion, and what are you going to end up with? Worse ones.
Yeah, well, that's what we've been saying the whole time. They'll either spend the same money, and they will. They'll spend this. They'll either spend the same money and get worse, or they'll spend more and get worse. I mean, she's the one that bought up the Ferrari. So what they're basically saying now is they're going to have the good old reliable second-hand Corolla for the price of a Ferrari. That's what's going to happen. They're going to get the lesser product for the price they could have got their Ferrari for. There's absolutely almost, even if they did it for $1.6 billion and they went, oh, look, we saved $400 million. Yeah, another $400 million for a Ferrari. There's no way out of this that's going to work for them. And even if they go, well, we're not paying for it, it's going to be privatized, that's still no way out for them, because that's not going to work well for them at the next election.
Yeah, there's some really awkward moments coming, because that contract they're talking about, the break cost on that contract, that has to be signed off by cabinet. So at some point, she's going to have to come along with paper to cabinet and say, "Look, can I have 300 or 500 million to give to Kiwi Rail, to walk away from the contract?" And you can just imagine every minister sitting around that table who's, been cutting frontline services, saying, wait, you're giving them 300 million not to build ferries for us? Yeah. And then that's before you get to, questions of privatization and not having rail, which, New Zealand First is big advocates of rail. They've always been huge on rails. So, trying to get Winston over the line on buying ferries that don't have rail, that's not going to be easy.
It's just everything everything they touch. Like we're not ever letting go this $14 billion worth of tax cuts, borrowing money, $3 billion to landlords. We can't, because when we get told by the health czar that the health system could go bankrupt, could be broke, and you add in $17 billion that this government's taken out of the pot, my problem is the only way they get re-elected is continuing through sort of culture war games and blame Labor. I just want to be able to have an honest conversation. You guys fucked up. You fucked up this ferry thing massively. I would have more respect for you if you said, you know what, we might have got that one wrong, but we need another 3 years to fix up our mistake. Okay, not fair, but I'll believe you. Anything else is just not believable. It's completely annoying.
Yeah. And I think it's these impulsive decisions. They came in and they decided to cancel this huge project that had been worked on for 5 years. They'd gone through all the different options of ferries you could buy. They'd looked at all the options, and the costs had escalated. But that does happen, and to cancel without working out what the alternative would cost you. Sometimes things are expensive, but they need to be done, and that's a bugger. But throwing your toys and in out doesn't actually solve the problem. And we see this all over the place where they've just gone, no, it's too much. The school buildings cost too much, so you're just not going to do them then. There's no solution.
And the other thing that's completely frustrating is we had this conversation about rates yesterday. You know, the same group of people, class of people, those people who are in ratepayers associations and stuff, who when it's a lefty kind of thing, don't want to pass on all this debt to their kids and grandkids. That's their line. And then something like this, or something like the infrastructure in a city, they don't want to pay the bill now, so they're happy to pass it on to their kids and their grandkids because that's what they're doing. It's like, get consistent, people. Like, get consistent or get out of the conversation.